Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode number 9 of the BamaPreps podcast. I'm your host, Vlad and I'm joined by my co-host, Mason Colmer. Mason, how we doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Hey, we're down to the Final Four.
Man. So, 7A gets decided. It'll be Thompson versus Central, and we'll talk about that game a little bit. But really, what the big news has been 6A through 1A. We're going to talk about all the matchups, everything that happened. But first things first, I was on location. Mason was, but once again as a spectator.
Wow. Spectator.
You, man.
What were you doing there,
bud?
bud?
In the trenches, man. You weren't working how I'm working.
You ain't being in the trenches. Hey, if AJ Green can't get into Saraland, I can't get into Saraland.
Yeah, man. So I was at Thompson versus Hewitt Trustville. Surprise, surprise. Thompson Preps. Yeah, I know. And then Mason was at Saraland versus Hillcrest in the stands up top. Get out the bifocals, gotta get out the binoculars. But Mason was up in the stands. So I'll talk a little bit about the Hewitt-Thompson game. Thompson wins 21-10, and it didn't look that way early. Hewitt-Trustville took a 10-0 lead. Peyton Floyd gets into the end zone, makes it 10-0, puts up the shadur, runs off to the sideline, and it was all Thompson from that point out. Warriors scored 21 unanswered. AJ Green gets a touchdown. Trent Seaborn got a touchdown, and I forget who scored the other one. But Warriors end up winning 21-10. Really good defensively in the second half, and they're looking strong heading into the state title. And they're going to face Central. Central Phoenix only beat Mary G. Montgomery 21-7. You know, I think a lot of people around the state were seeing that one as probably going to be a blowout, but MGM held their own on defense, only allowed Central Phoenix to score 21 points. I think that's their lowest point total of the season. Yeah, I think it is because they scored on Auburn 40-plus both times, right?
Yeah, no, it's definitely the lowest scoring for Central. I mean, the only one I can think of being like that would be Hewitt, but I think they put up 40.
No, they put up 48 or 49 against Hewitt. I forget if it's 2 field goals or a touchdown, whichever one's 6 or 7. But yeah, it'll be Central Phoenix, Thompson. Man, have we heard this one before? This is the 4th time in 6 years that these two are going to be facing off in the state title. And Thompson leads 2-1 right now. Central Phoenix won the first matchup, I believe 52-7, and one of the greatest high school teams all time in the state of Alabama in 2018. 2019, Thompson comes back and wins. I want to say 40-14 was the final score of that game, and then Thompson won 38-22 in 2021. First game in Birmingham, first game at Protective Stadium for the state title there. But we get the rematch once again. How excited are you for this game?
I mean, I'm pretty excited. I think it's this game I think it's going to be a little different than in years past. It's not going to be one-sided. Both of these teams are very evenly matched. I think both of these teams believe they can win this game. I'm just ready to see what Cam Coleman does against some elite DBs.
Yeah, elite DBs. Thompson's got them. They really do. Anquan Fagans, Caleb Harris. You know, they've got a really, really strong secondary, and I think this is the strongest defense that Central is going to face all season. You know, the Hewitt game and the Auburn games, both Auburn games went really, really well for Central. God, they can put up points in a hurry. But that MGM game is what really, you know, makes me kind of question. But you also got to remember, Thompson also struggled against Hewitt, who's another really good team.
They only scored 7 points in the second half, but you got to understand, MGM, we clearly learned it wasn't a fluke. I just think the way they played two teams that Central had played really close, that Central had dominated, we all kind of got this perception. But I think just MGM, I think Central might have gotten a little big-headed and thought we're getting run right through them. Let's just take it a little easy.
You can't take any game for granted. I don't think Central does.
Yeah, but I don't think they put as much emphasis, and MGM caught them sleeping there for a little while. And that offense wasn't able to get going, and that's just a testament to how good that Central defense is.
Yeah. And that touchdown was a really, really late touchdown.
I think it was like fourth quarter, 21-0.
Late fourth quarter. It was 21-0 really the whole game, 14-0. But yeah, both teams, they're here. They're here. You win the game, no matter how pretty, how ugly, they're here. And this game, you know, and we both picked Thompson for our state title picks, which, you know, was sort of start a playoff thing. You know, Thompson's going to be Thompson. And they have been. And they've won their games, but so has Central in convincing fashion all 3 weeks. So we're not going to speak too much on this game. We're going to save that for our Super 7 preview, which we will do next week. That'll be what the podcast is next week. But we're going to jump right into 6A, and we're going to talk about some of the games that happened. 6A kind of went as expected, except for maybe one game, which was the Pike Road Ben Russell game, but Saraland versus Hillcrest Tuscaloosa. You were at that game. Saraland ends up winning 31-21, their closest game since week 1 against Lipscomb in Tennessee. What about this Saraland Hillcrest game surprised you? What didn't surprise you? How did you see it? You were there.
I was there in person. Look, Hillcrest definitely rode off the emotion early on. First drive, Saraland's driving, doing what Saraland does. They looked very good. They weren't trying to score quick against Hillcrest. They were trying to run that clock down, and you just cough up a ball on a completion. Hillcrest hops right on it. They go down the
7-0.
7-0 scores, but it didn't take long for Saraland to go tie it up next drive. Then, following drive, KJ Lacey throws it up, interception.
Ooh.
Ends the drive.
Yeah.
Deep shot. So they go, but Saraland eventually got up 14-7 going into half. 2 big turnovers in the first half that kept Saraland's offense off the field, and that's what you got to do. You got to keep their offense off the field.
The blueprint's there, yeah.
Yeah, and I've said it many times. Getting down 14 points to a Saraland team's hard to come back from, and that's what happened in the second half.
Feels
right
like
off the bat, 21-7, then 28-7. Hillcrest going in the third quarter, scores, makes it 28-14. I text you like, keep me updated. Big turnover, another deep ball by KJ Lacey that was intercepted. Hillcrest, they were excited. That sideline, the fans that showed up were loud.
How many fans were there for Hillcrest?
It was packed on both sides, but I can tell you, I'm pretty sure the whole city of Mobile was at that game. I saw Jackson Aggies toboggan in the bathroom, and I'm like, isn't your team playing right now? So I guess he didn't want to go to that one.
Jackson toboggan is crazy.
But, yeah, I felt like the whole time, once Saraland got up 14, they knew they had the game in control. And then once Hillcrest would respond with a touchdown, Saraland was very quick to go up and respond.
Yeah.
35-21. Like earlier we said with Central MGM, I think that late touchdown was a little bit of garbage time touchdown. Now, don't get me wrong. Hillcrest's 2 touchdowns in the second half were wide open touchdowns. Tight end down the middle. Fooled them all game because Hillcrest runs an amazing offense to where they can eventually fool you with a big pop play like that. The tight end sneaks out under center. Next one was a wheel route by the running back that just no one decided to cover the running back. Wide open down the field. So overall, though, I think the score doesn't really reflect how that game went. I think Saraland handled Hillcrest pretty well to struggle early on.
Hillcrest Tuscaloosa's offense all season long has been really, really interesting to watch because they'll line up in the gun, they'll do all the normal spread stuff, but then they'll get in the flex zone.
It's like City League. You're watching the I formation out there.
Yeah, then they'll get in the I formation. They throw a lot at you, and I'm sure it was a different thing to prepare for Saraland because Briarwood runs traditional spread, McAdory ran traditional spread, but this next round, this semifinal game for Saraland is maybe not who we expected, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Pike Road, Ben Russell, in Alexander City, at Ben Russell. Pike Road ends up winning 31-28. Really, really close game. Really fun game to watch, game to rewatch. And Pike Road, man, pulls it off. Really, really good run for them. They beat Homewood by 1 point. They scored 31 unanswered against Spanish Fort. Now they get a huge, huge win over Ben Russell to go to the semifinal game. But they're going to have to travel down south. They're going to have to go to Saraland. And that's going to be a tough, tough game for them. Who's your pick in this one between Saraland and Pike Road?
I've got to roll with the Spartans.
Yeah, man.
And, I hate to do this, but I think that Hillcrest game was a tougher game for the Spartans than Pike Road. And honestly, I think I predicted Spanish Fort to come out of the bottom part of the South.
And
the bottom part of the bracket.
Russell, yeah.
So I wasn't expecting any of the teams. I had Spanish Fort and Theodore in the Ben Russell Pike Road game. So I didn't see this happening, but props to them. Great run for Pike Road. Finally getting their foot down in 6A. Last year they were the 2 seed. I think they got eliminated pretty early on in the playoff. They might have been first round.
I'd have to look at it again, but I remember Carver Montgomery won that region.
Yeah, Carver Montgomery was stacked last year. That's a talented team. But Pike Road, props to them, finally getting their foot in the ground. Back in the semifinals, first time since 2021 in 5A when that team was loaded with talent.
Judkins, man.
Been running the SEC for a while now.
Yeah, he has.
So,
back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons for Judkins, man.
Hey, Lane Kiffin's a mastermind, ain't he?
He's a 3-star recruit coming out of this Pike Road, I believe. And Pike Road, man, they've had some real talent come through there. Anthony Rogers, who went to IMG Academy, was their 5-star running back last year. He would have been top running back in the state for 24.
They have a D lineman. Gosh, I can't think of his name right now. He is committed to Auburn. He's a 4-star.
Autry.
Is it Brandon?
Blockton. Malik Blockton.
Malik Blockton.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Autry, the Opelika defensive line.
No, Malik Blockton. He might give Sutherland's offensive line a little bit of trouble there, here and there, but KJ Lacey, he can move around in that pocket and make plays, and he did it against.
It seems like every
Hillcrest.
single highlight I see with Lacey is him like off his back foot throwing the ball 40 yards down the field.
Yeah, Hillcrest really made him pay for doing that when he would throw it up. It was a lot of short passes that receivers turned into long runs. Like, they ran a screen to Ryan that went for 75 yards.
Wow.
Only thing Ryan did all game because they were making sure Ryan did not beat him this year.
Yeah, he did it last year.
He did.
56 points put up on that Saraland defense on the Hillcrest defense last season.
But I see a pretty big matchup on the other side.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll start with the third round games, and then we will eventually get to this huge Clay Chalkville Parker game. Let's start with Parker Gadsden City. Parker beats Gadsden City in Major Brown Memorial Stadium in Birmingham. They win 35-20 over the Titans. Big win for Parker. Their offense put up some points, but they also allowed 20 points to Gadsden City. That is the highest point total that Parker has allowed so far in the playoffs this season. And they will be matching up with Clay Chalkville. We sort of predicted this to happen. We knew that it was going to be a tough road for them to go up to Muscle Shoals and play it in a really big environment there. But Clay Chalkville ends up beating Muscle Shoals 44-27. Really good offensive game. Definitely a big bounce back from the week before, where they only put up 17 and barely edged out a win against Mountain Brook. But they're here now, and Parker's going to have to travel to Cougar Stadium in Clay Chalkville. Wow, this is a rematch. This is a big rematch from last year. Last year, Clay Chalkville was the number 1 seed coming out of the north side of the bracket.
Everyone thought they were going to repeat.
Yeah, and they lost that game. I know they had some injuries. I believe their starting quarterback last season was injured, and they were running with a backup. They scored a touchdown last season.
Wait, hold on. But their backup's their current starting quarterback, right?
No.
Jalen Mbakwe wasn't...
Mbakwe was not a quarter... He switched this offseason.
Oh, so he was just the receiver last year. He was still receiving last year? I thought they were running him at quarterback at the end of that game.
So they had last season...
It was...
And my memory could be wrong, but they had a package with him where they ran him at quarterback like as a wildcat. Because I remember when we played against them that year, when they came to Thompson in 22, they had him as the short yardage guy. They put some D linemen, and they just ran the ball with him short yardage. And last season, I forget. Kamari McClellan was their quarterback last season. And,
great quarterback.
Yeah, and he's been the backup all year for them this year. They've just let Mbakwe run wild in that offense. But they lost this game last season, 7-6 to the same Thundering Herd team. Chalkville went up 6-0 in that game, and then Parker scored a late touchdown to make it 7-0. Clay had some field goal kicking issues last season and were not able to score at all. Parker ended up pulling off the biggest upset in the state in the first round last season. So you know that Clay Chalkville has some
what their motto all year has been redemption.
Yeah,
and
it has.
This is
the biggest redemption.
This is it. Your redemption is here.
Yeah.
You've got the team that put you out for a spot to go to state, for a shot to finish the story. I mean, it's a revenge tour. Clay's been successful so far.
Okay, well, then let's pick. Who do you got in this one? And Parker's offense seems to be clicking a little bit more than what they had the first few rounds. This is a big game. Who do you have?
Well, Parker has kind of done a little bit of a change. Malik, their quarterback for most of the season, came back. He's been put at receiver. They've ran Cameron Jennings at quarterback. Yeah. Just put a little more athletes out there. I mean, they just have athletes. They play guys to win. They don't...
Yeah, Naeem Offord plays both ways.
Yeah.
He's a 5-star defensive back.
They play both ways. They'll put Jordan Crawford in there sometimes. I mean, shoot.
Beeman scored a touchdown against Ramsey.
Yeah, so they'll put anybody in there. But I picked Parker to go to state early on in the playoff prediction show, but I also picked Muscle Shoals to beat Clay Chalkville. So I'm sorry to all Clay Chalkville.
Who you got?
Gosh, I don't know. You pick and then I'll pick. You pick, then I'll pick.
All right. This, like we've talked about all season long, redemption has been the name of the game for Clay Chalkville, and they want this game. They get it in front of their home crowd. They were away last week. They want this game. I've got the Cougars going to state.
Not so fast, my friend. I'm going with the Thundering Herd. The U, Parker, A.H. Parker, Thundering Herd. The U is winning it, going to state to take on those Spartans.
Wow. Okay. All right, well then let's work through both scenarios of this. So we both had Saraland if Clay wins this game, do they treat this game like their Super Bowl and not show up against Saraland, or like?
No, you're going to the state championship. Yeah. You're going to get up for the state championship. You're not going to catch a team sleeping in the state championship. Yeah. Clay's been there before. Most of these guys played on the team. Jalen Mbakwe and Mario Craver were really young, but they were on that team. Yeah. A lot of experience. Yeah, they have a lot of transfers coming in, but they expect to be there each year, no matter what. They dominate. They were a powerhouse when 6A was the top of the top. Yeah. Clay expects to be there. They're going to treat this. Yeah, this game's massive for them. It's massive for both teams. Parker getting this deep is impressive. But Clay, I don't think any of these teams make it. They're not going to sleep on them.
I hear you. And, man, I think that both games, Parker or Clay against Saraland, is going to be a huge 6A state title game because both of these teams are gushing with talent, just absolutely loaded on both sides of the football. Let's jump to 5A now. 5A also had some really, really interesting games. And if BamaPreps will pull them up here real quick, we'll start at the top, or the top of the South bracket. Gulf Shores beats Headland 35-14. They move on sort of as expected there. And then Eufaula, man, who would have predicted Eufaula, the Region 2 1 seed, all the way to the semifinal game against Gulf Shores. It's going to be played in Blackwell Stadium in Gulf Shores. Eufaula, man, it's been a really, really good run for them. They've had some impressive wins. They barely edged out a win over Demopolis in the third round. They beat them 20-17. Does that run keep going, or is this Gulf Shores' destiny to go to the state title?
Like, I think since the moment that report dropped and they pinned Gulf Shores into a corner, Gulf Shores had nowhere to go. All they had to do was win and prove it, and they're shutting everyone up.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep going. I mean, this Gulf Shores team is playing lights out. They're proving to us why they are undefeated. I mean, they belong. And they belong in the state championship game.
My 5A pick is here. I can't bet against them. Great run for Eufaula. Really, really good run for Eufaula. I don't think anybody expected the Tigers to make it.
Gosh, I think we had like Demopolis and maybe like... You might have had BC Rain in the semi.
It was Rain. Yeah, I mean, we expected Demop to win these games, but you know, it's been that whole side of the bracket, that little side of the bracket has just been really, really interesting to unfold. There's been a lot of teams that I don't have a lot of knowledge on, so it was tough for me to make a pick there. But yeah, I've got Gulf Shores in this one as well. I think that the Dolphins move to the state title. Let's move to the other side of the bracket. Ramsey, Moody. Man, was this game hyped up. And at the end of the day, Ramsey traveled to Bill Moore Stadium in Moody and beat the Blue Devils 40-27 to move on to the semifinal game. And they're going to get a different matchup here. Guntersville, who is on the other side of the North bracket, beat Pleasant Grove 31-21 out of nowhere.
Guntersville, I just don't get it. I don't know how that.
Guntersville the week before survived John Carroll at John Carroll 20-17, and then they get to PG, they get them at home, and then they beat them by 10 points, which is no slouch. PG is a really good team. This team beat Parker.
Any given Friday. Friday. It's the playoffs.
So now we get a matchup between Guntersville and Ramsey, which really, I mean, Guntersville has looked really impressive, but the defending 5A state champs are here to defend their crown. Who do you got in this one, Ramsey or Guntersville?
Look, Ramsey's been my pick for 5A all year. They pulled away late from Moody, kind of dominated that second half for Moody. And they're going to dominate Guntersville on the way to a state championship. Man, right? If our picks stay aligned, they're putting the Super in Super 7.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the best teams are going to make it to the state title this year.
This doesn't happen a lot.
No. Ramsey over Guntersville. I'm going to pick the Rams as well. I think they keep rolling, and I think it sets up a huge 5A state championship between Gulf Shores and Ramsey. We predicted it all year. Let's jump to 4A now. 4A has been just completely flipped on its head, especially after this game happened down south. Let's talk about Booker T. Washington at Jackson. How about the Jackson Aggies winning the games they have to do, blowing out Andalusia, and then they got to play BT Washington. They lose 20-17.
What in the world, man?
Man, what you want to talk about a run for Booker T. Washington? beats American Christian by 10 points, beats Hanley by 13. Was that 13?
13, not a boy.
13 points. Yeah, mathing, baby. Come on. And then they beat Jackson. The game was in Tuskegee. Let's put it that way. That game was in Tuskegee at Eagle Stadium, and they took care of business again at the. God, I can't talk today. They took care of business in front of their home fans. How big of a win is that for Booker T. Washington?
That's a program-defining win right there.
Yeah.
That establishes BT Washington. I've seen the high praise for BT Washington's coach. Great win for him. Massive win. I mean, they stayed in the game. They game planned. They found a way to beat them.
Yeah.
I mean, but
that is a good team they just beat.
And it's not going to be the last we hear of Jackson for a very long time.
Oh, no. They've got a really, really young core. This was a good season for Jackson, but they've got to find a way to finish these playoff games, and we'll hear from them next year. I know that for a fact. Booker T. Washington moves on to the semifinal matchup against who? My 4A pick, Montgomery Catholic. Catholic takes care of Jacksonville 44-20. They had to go to Jacksonville to play that game, but they take care of business, and now they're going to have a home game against BT Washington. Who do you have in this one between Catholic and BT?
Look, Montgomery Catholic, great team. They have a great defense. This defense, though, has started looking lackluster in the playoffs. They're letting up a little more points here and there. During the season, it clearly didn't matter who they were playing.
Yeah. No, they were pitching shutouts left and right. They had like 8 regular season shutouts. But yeah, no, I agree. I think that their defense has been letting up more. But you also got to remember, they're getting the best game from everyone else. They're getting Jacksonville's best. They got T.R. Miller's best in what was a really, really close game in round 2. But
my state title picks here, and I can't pick against Montgomery Catholic. So
Yeah.
I'm going to go Montgomery Catholic and I guess we can call this a Cinderella run, a true Cinderella run by BT Washington. End it, but who knows? Anything can happen. We saw what they did last week. BT Washington knows they can beat great teams, and who knows what will happen this Friday.
I agree. And it's a tough game for me to pick as well, but I'm going to have to go with Catholic in this one. Just at home, they get it where they got to be. Let's jump to the north side of the bracket, and let's jump to this Brooks-Westminster Christian game. And I've said it time and time again, Brandon Mush, one of the best quarterbacks in 4A, just a true gamer that plays both sides of the ball. And Westminster beats Brooks 48-27. And we talked about Brooks' offense so much. They only scored 27, let up 48. We know that defense has been an issue for Brooks. They let up 42, and they let up 42 both weeks in their 2 first round play. In their 2, God man, I just can't talk to it. They let up 2. What am I trying to say?
They let up 2 straight games of 42 points. It's like they've kind of like led with like a Lincoln Riley philosophy here. Let the offense outscore. Let the offense outscore and hope the defense can just maybe get 1 or 2 stops, a couple lucky turnovers here. Clearly, didn't work. Westminster's offense overpowered their defense, got some key stops, and they head to the semifinals. What a run for Westminster.
Yeah, I agree. Big win over Deschler in round 2, and now they take care of Brooks. They've been on the road this was their first game on the road, but they move on to the semifinal game, and they're going to face Cherokee County, who had a huge win over West Morgan. And when I was on Unlock Your Games show earlier this week on Tuesday, he talked about this West Morgan team, and he talked about how good, and we both picked West Morgan to win this game, and Cherokee County just did what they had to do. Jacob Cornejo, another great rushing performance, and they're going to face Westminster Christian. Cherokee County was in the state championship game last season. Do you think that they get back?
Oh, gosh, this one's a hard one to pick for me. Cherokee County, found out earlier listening to other shows, high school people, pretty reliable sources in the state. Cherokee County's without their quarterback. But I really don't think that.
Do you need your quarterback when you got Jacob Cornejo?
I think against Westminster they do.
Ooh.
And I got Westminster winning.
Wow, on the upset.
And you know, this is
it's an upset.
This is a team we saw in person at the end of the season. And this didn't look like a semifinal team at the end of the season. And now they're here. And right now, they're going to be a state finalist by the end of this.
Man. Yeah. I'm going to pick Cherokee County. I gotta go with them. I just think that they ran their way to the state title last season, and I think that they can do it again, and I think that they can match up pretty well against Montgomery Catholic. You ready to move to 3A?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go to 3A. So at the top of the 3A bracket, we had Mobile Christian beat Trinity 42-21, sort of as expected there. Trinity was a good team, but I think that their playoff games were pretty easy for the first two rounds. Providence Christian and then Flomaton, who beat Walter Wellborn, who's the 1 seed in Region 4, but now they meet a really good Mobile Christian team, and they are advancing to the semifinal. And then St. James pulls off a huge win over Thomasville. St. James, defending 3A state champs, had to travel to Thomasville, but they get the win 28-26, which sets up a Mobile Christian St. James semifinal game. KJ Jackson, elite quarterback play, but this Mobile Christian team earlier this season lost their best player, but now they're here, and they have made a statement all season long, undefeated. They are 13-0, and who do you got in this one, St. James or Mobile Christian?
Look, I feel wrong doing this. St. James, my 3A pick to win it all.
Wow.
But they struggled against a Thomasville team that Mobile Christian dominated.
Yeah.
And everyone said, I remember the build-up to this. I remember texting you and calling you and saying, people are saying Thomasville has a shot to beat Mobile Christian. I looked at you and said, these people are crazy. And Mobile Christian proved it right. St. James, I thought they would have dominated Thomasville to get to the semifinal game and given me that confidence. They didn't. They played them really, really close. I'm going with the Leopards to get back to state. I think first time since 2019.
They've been there pretty recently.
2019, get back there, and maybe they can finish the job here.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going with Mobile Christian too. St. James wasn't my 3A pick, but they were my pick to go to the state title to face my 3A pick. And I think that Mobile Christian is playing their best football right now. They've absolutely handled everybody who they faced, and I think that the Leopards win this one. Let's move to the north side of the bracket, and we had a matchup between Geraldine and Lauderdale County, where Geraldine absolutely dominated this game. Lauderdale County coming off a big win over Piedmont, and we thought maybe they'd have some momentum, but obviously Geraldine has just been doing what they've had to do, the 2 seed out of Region 6, and they move on to the state title game against, guess who? My 3A pick, Madison Academy. Shout out Coach Hughes once again, the strength coach and athletic director at MA. They barely beat Sylvania. That game was an absolute dogfight, and I remember watching this game. I remember hearing about this game, went back and rewatched it. This was a Sylvania-controlled game for a long time. They run 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, and they run that football. They run dive, they run power, they run the greatest counter you've seen of all time, pretty much. But Madison Academy and Ken Cherry sneak out. Players your best player makes his best play of the season, and they move on to the 3A semifinal. They're going to have to go to Geraldine, which is going to be another really, really tough game. Geraldine absolutely handled Lauderdale County, who I think we both picked to win that game, if I'm not mistaken. Who do you got in this one, MA or Geraldine?
Look, I saw Cody on Twitter. He kept receipts. There was a guy that said they're not making it to state, and that guy still stands by his decision. Cody told us when we went to go watch him play Westminster. Coach Hughes, let's respect him. Coach Hughes. All right, Coach Hughes told us.
On a first name basis, right?
No, Coach Hughes. All right. Look, there's still like 18-year-old high school players coming out at me here. But Coach Hughes told us that Madison Academy wouldn't be tested until the playoffs. Yeah. He said their region was weak. They played a terrible non-region schedule. He said Westminster would have been their best opportunity to see what they had. And they showed us what they had. Yeah. Geraldine, great team. They've beaten some great teams, dominated a great Lauderdale County team who beat Morris Hill, who Madison Academy struggled with.
Yeah.
Gosh. Mm-hmm. Am I picking against the Mustangs?
Are you?
Am I?
Are you?
Am I?
Madison's got to go to Geraldine.
Where even is Geraldine?
I don't know.
Is it in Geraldine, Alabama? That sounds like
a city.
That sounds like a city in Alabama.
Sounds like a city. God, I should know this.
If Geraldine's a city, I'll pick them.
No, they're in Rogersville.
Okay, Madison Academy wins. Madison Academy
really
wins.
Madison
Madison Academy versus Mobile Christian.
Well, I'll make my pick short and sweet. I picked MA to win the state title. I don't think their run ends here. They've had 2 back-to-back tough playoff games. Boy, have they been tested. And I think that run does not end. And I think that they go to the 3A state championship game. Let's go to 2A. Let's go to 2A. 2A was pretty open and shut, except for one game, which we'll get to last. But B.B. Comer takes care of Clark County, sort of as expected. Comer's been one of the best teams in 2A. They win 43-22. They move on, and they'll have a home game. They'll have a home game against Reeltown, who took care of Cottonwood 41-22. Reeltown has been a really good team as well. This is a really, really big semifinal game to go to the state championship game. And it is my belief that we have right now the 4 best teams in 2A. Obviously, we'll get to the north side of the bracket, but between B.B. Comer and Reeltown, who do you got?
B.B. Comer. I had him in the semifinal game. I had him going up against Reeltown.
Yep.
And I picked Reeltown to win.
Ooh.
And I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with Reeltown.
Go the Rebs?
They're going to roll on in to where they've kind of become normal, kind of belonged in the state championships, in the Super 7. Reeltown's going back to the 2A state championship.
Wow. Going back. This is a B.B. Comer team that was in this game last season. They had a tough 2A. They had a tough slate of 2A games last season to get there. I'm going to go with B.B. Comer. I think that the Tigers can win this one, and I think that they move on back, just like last season. I think they move on to the 2A state title. And let's move to the north side of the bracket. Pisgah ekes out a win against Tuscaloosa Academy. They win 36-29. Big game. Was really back and forth in that one, but Pisgah and the Eagles eventually did eke it out. And then they're going to have a rematch with their region foes, that Region 7 boogeyman, that is Fife and the Red Devils. Fife took care of a Locust Fork team that I picked to win the state title. They took care of them handedly, 63-33. 63 points is a lot of points for that offense. And Fife did what they had to do. They look like the best team in 2A right now. They sure run the ball. Logan Anderson had 8 touchdowns against a really, really good Locust Fork team. Who do you got between Fife and Pisgah, the rematch?
Fife, my pick to win state. Keeping it short and simple. Fife's going to state.
I got to agree with you. Pisgah played Fife really, really close, if I remember correctly, 56-42. Yeah, that was definitely the final score of the regular season game. That's the closest anybody has played Fife outside of their non-region first game of the season where they lost to Sylvania, I believe who it was. It was one of those 3. Geraldine or Sylvania. But Fife, man, they've been rolling. Man, they're good. I'm going to have to go with the Red Devils once again. Now, we move down to 1A to where, 1A also has really, really gone as expected. Obviously, Elba rolling, doing what they had to do. But let's start with the top of the bracket. Leroy beats the brakes off of Brantley 40-18. As Leroy moves on to face that Elba team that I just mentioned, Alvin Henderson. They take care of Maplesville 49-14. Leroy Elba, your defending 1A state champs versus probably the hottest team in 1A. Who do you got between this one?
Leroy, my 1A pick. I had him in this game against Elba. Leroy. I'm sticking with Leroy. I'm sticking with Leroy. I know I'm going up against your state product.
Not so fast.
Whoa, did you not know fast me, buddy?
Hey, man. That's how we do it around here.
Wow.
I got Elba. I've got Alvin Henderson, and I've got that offense. They're going to roll. And then we'll jump to the north side of 1A, where Coosa Christian took care of half.
The hottest team in 1A, Coosa Christian.
Ooh, okay. I can levy that. I can agree with that. They have been on a warpath, and they win, like I mentioned, 63-13 against Hackleburg. Coosa moves on to the semifinal game, and then Pickens County versus Wadley. Wadley, a team who put up 81 points the week before, limited to 14.
Wow.
18-14 is the final score. That game was played in Reform at Pickens County, and this is average. This is normal for the Tornadoes. They do what they have to do to get to these big games, these big semifinal games. They've got a really good team on the other side in Coosa Christian. Who do you got in this one?
Oh, Tornadoes. What a high school football team name, man.
I feel like we talk. Shout out, dude. Whoever named them, good job.
Like, man, gosh, that's an awesome name. But the Tornadoes, they're not beating Coosa Christian.
Really?
Coosa Christian was my pick in 1A to face Leroy in the state title game, and I'm sticking with it. Coosa Christian's going to state. Another team that was restricted all season, had to forfeit a lot of games.
Yeah.
But they have proved that didn't matter.
Yeah.
They got in. They've done what they've done.
They would be undefeated. They'd be 13-0 right now, but with those forfeited games, they are 8-5. They've got a really good shot to go 10-5, NFL record, if they can win all the way through.
Gosh, would that be the most losses a state if they do end up winning state for a state champ in a long time?
I'd have to look.
That might be like the most losses for one ever.
That's something that Mr. David Parker with the Alabama High School Football Historical Society can answer. That's not something that I can answer.
Yeah, look, he's amazing, man. What he does, it's just great for the game.
So you've got Coosa. I've got Coosa as well. Pickens County has won close games. Every single one of their playoff games has been within 2 scores, and they've done what they've had to do, but Coosa is just a surging team right now. That's going to set up a really, really fun 1A scenario. Let's move on to my favorite part of the show, which is Ask BamaPreps. I feel like we've been absolutely rolling. It's almost like we have it down to a science. Let's move on here to Ask BamaPreps, and Quintez Square asks, Clay versus Parker prediction. We know that. That was, you picked Parker. I picked Clay in that one. So we will move on. We have, some dude did a hot take. We're not there yet. There we go. Hunter Cochran 04 asks, or he says, y'all have been doubting Eufaula, yet they keep winning. They beating Gulf Shores this week? ?
No.
No? Is it that simple?
Yeah.
We have been doubting Eufaula.
We have been
subliminally doubting.
We have been doubting Eufaula, but this bottom of the half of the bracket to me resembles the 6A bottom half of the South bracket.
Yeah.
And it's just any team could have came out of there. We kind of think both picked Demopolis to come out of there just because it was a name we recognized out of there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of our fault, just not being familiar with the game.
Yeah, it's more of a statement, but they say y'all been sleeping on Eufaula. There's been a lot of Eufaula people in here.
I guess they're speaking up, but those Dolphins are going to handle business in Gulf Shores, Alabama. They bleed blue. They're going to blue it out. They're blowing out. Not blowing out Eufaula. I think Eufaula can put up a fight, but I just don't see a reality where Gulf Shores loses.
All right, Cole D11 here asks, what's the biggest upset you've got this week?
Biggest upset.
Do we have an upset this week?
Every team has a shot to win this week. The biggest chance of an upset I think happening is in 5A with Eufaula and Gunnersville happening. And just to me, those aren't even like...
Is Gunnersville Ramsey something we can consider?
To me, more of Gulf Shores Eufaula would be upset alert for Gulf Shores.
Yeah.
Like upset watch. If we did upset watch, I would put Gulf Shores more than I would put Ramsey.
6A Pike Road would be the biggest upset if they could beat Saraland.
But
and there's a lot of belief around those Patriots that they can do it, but we don't see that happening.
Yeah. Parker Clays, any way it goes.
4A Westminster, which you have, would probably be the biggest one.
Yeah. Biggest realistic upset. Yeah. Realistic.
We have a question here from Preston Piper, college question. He asks, what's your Final Four for college football playoffs teams after next Saturday? Look, man, I'm going to put it simply. I'm a Bama homer. Mason's an Auburn fan. We're kind of split there. House divided, if you will. Like you see the little license plates.
Are we going to get a license plate? BamaPreps Studio is going to have a house divided license plate on the BamaPreps van, our little production van, in like 10 years. Final Four for this.
We got another Alabama Auburn question. Baker Stewart asks, "Why in the world would you rush 2 on 4th and 31?" Okay, well I can answer this one.
Because Jalen Milroe's been running over us all game, and knowing Auburn football luck, it was either we were going to give up a ridiculous 4th and 31 to the corner of the end zone, because that happened, or Jalen Milroe was going to find a way to run. Jalen Milroe was going to find a way to run 31 yards into the end zone, but just how that. Who knows? That game was crazy, but it's the Iron Bowl, for crying out loud. Anything happens in the Iron Bowl. Are we not going to answer the CFP top 4?
Oh, yeah, we didn't answer that.
Yeah, we're just skipping questions. Shout out Blake, by the way, man.
I'm a Bama homer.
What, you got Bama at 1?
No, if we're going to be realistic here, I don't know. Look, I'll say after this. We'll do after this week. I think Michigan has to go to 1. Huge win over Ohio State. I think 2... How do you put it 2?
You put the Dogs.
Yeah.
Are you talking? You're talking about after this week.
Okay,
We're not.
Georgia at 2.
We'll give our top 4 next week. Well, shoot, no, the top 4 would be out next week.
Yeah, at 3 you've got to put Washington. They got to move up, big win. Do you put Ohio State at 4, or do you put Florida State at 4?
You put Florida State at 4.
You got to keep them there. I think
You got to ignore the fact that Jordan Travis is out.
And then you got to put Ohio State at 5.
The only reason I could see them doing this is I could see them just because how much the CFP, they don't want to see 2 SEC teams in it again, because every time they do put 2 SEC teams in, it ends up with Georgia and Alabama in the national championship. I could see them possibly putting Oregon at 4 and really having that Washington loss. Who knows with the CFP? They always seem to amaze us. They don't know ball like BamaPreps knows ball.
You ain't lying, man. You ain't lying. And most of these questions are just about Thompson and Central, and that's all stuff that we're going to answer next week on our 7-8.
Ooh, big predictions next week.
It is. We have Quintez, who has another question here. He says he's talking about this Pleasant Grove upset, and I feel like we do need to probably speak into a little more just how big this is for Guntersville to move on to this game. Man, really big win for Guntersville, but man, they're gonna have a tough one against Ramsey. Man, Ramsey's a machine when it comes to the playoffs these last few years. And we have another question here: how awesome of a story is Booker T. Washington in 4A? Yes. God, I cannot speak enough about just how awesome it has been to watch the Eagles.
Would we put Montgomery Catholic on upset alert?
Ooh, yeah, that's another. Yeah, no, that could happen.
That's the most real. I think out of all the upsets that could be called an upset, Westminster to me is more of kind of Westminster has a shot. Like BT Washington to me is they have a shot to pull off biggest upset. Kind of just shock everyone in 4A. I don't think anyone had BT Washington here. You can tell me what you want to say.
Listen to me. If BT Washington gets past Catholic, they've got to be our 4A picks.
They've got to. They've knocked off
Westminster and Cherokee County. Like, ooh.
Gosh, man.
It's getting icky in 4A.
Gosh, 4A has kind of been the wild child. Hey, they're in the middle. They're the crazy middle child. They've gone crazy.
Crazy middle child. They are in the middle, aren't they? Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. That's going to be all we have for episode 9 of the BamaPreps podcast as Mason reacts to the Chargers-Ravens game.
Why throw that ball up, Justin Herbert? You just threw an interception. Cost me fantasy football points. Save it for another day, all right? Look, I'm 1-8 in fantasy, but the way Sleeper does it is it's a toilet bowl. So, like, at the end of the season when they're playing in the playoff, I'll play in the toilet bowl. And if I win, I won't finish last in the league. So I can finish with 2 wins and not be last in the league.
Yeah, big fantasy guy over here. Anyways, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week when every state final game is up for grabs.
Are we previewing the CFP too next week?
God, it's just after this episode. All right, thank you guys.